Hey, I'm back. So you may recall in a previous video I mentioned that in that inverter, the choke or inductor on the output of the inverter was getting really hot under the extreme loads. So I had this toroid transformer inside this piece of junk here. That's where it was. And so I unwound it. I spent a day unwinding all this nice copper magnetic wire just to get to the core because I thought it would be compatible. Now, I didn't have a whole big understanding on magnetics and inductors design and all that stuff, but that's changed since then because I learned through experiment that this doesn't actually work. I need something that has a relative permeability of 125 mu, whatever that means. I have no idea what the relative permeability of this material is. It's not compressed iron filings or anything like that. This is laminated steel in a coil. So this might work for a transformer, but it doesn't work for my application, which is filtering out 25 kilohertz. So let's just put aside, leaving that for now. But in the meantime, what do I do with this? Well, I was going to consider making my own inductor once I do get the right materials, and this is part of the learning curve. The specifics on what I'm going to do with the inductor is going to be another video, but for now, I kind of came up with a solution as to what to do with all this copper wire, because even if I did choose to wind an inductor using this is all crinkled up and all bent. So there's a lot of it. This is just one spool. I have like 3 spools. So I saw online about wire straighteners, and generally what's done is with bearings, and you just kind of go through a loop of bearings, and there you go, it's all straight. So I figured, well, how hard could that be to make it? And a little bit of trial and error, but the main thing was I didn't have any bearings, especially the kind with the groove to hold the wire in place. So what I ended up doing is getting some fidget spinners, and this is pretty much the only thing this project has cost me, other than a bunch of time. Pushed out the bearings, and then I got some epoxy and glued on some washers on the outside so the inside ring still spins. And I set this guy up here. So this is the thin stuff here that I'm just going through first. The epoxy is hardened. I just did it this morning. I don't know if it's fully cured yet, and I already had a failure once because probably some grease or something was on the bearings. Here's more of that magnetic wire. And you can see this stuff is all crinkled and rather unpleasant. And I've already got it going, and there it goes, nice and straight. And that's what it looks like there. So I'm going to press the on button, and you'll probably be deafened because, again, this didn't really cost me anything. I already had this laying around. This is obviously an old winch, and these spools are for the 3D printer, some empty spools, and I just kind of bolted it in place, and it's just kind of resting in there. And yeah, so all I got to do is just kind of keep this fed, and it spools it up real nice. And I can change the spool. I have another one over here that fits as well. As I broke it in half just to see if I could do it. So just those 3 holes there, I just mount some screws and it fits real nice. So what I'm going to do is just going to use this spool for storage. What happens is as soon as I let go of this tension, this thing here uncoils itself. It's like spring loaded, so it has to be tied down. And then I'll probably have to run it through the straightener again if I actually want to do something with it, or some kind of de-spooling mechanism, because as soon as I take the tension off, it just kind of uncoils itself and makes a big mess. So anyways, let's try this out and see if I can do this with one hand. I'm not feeling super confident with one hand, so let's just stick this here. And I don't think you'll be able to hear anything because it's really loud. I tried adding a groove to some of the bearings. It didn't really work. So alright, there we go. So away we go. right, that's pretty loud, but that's just because it's a really cheap winch. I got this thing years ago, and there's a massive gear reduction in here. And this is meant for like massive amount of torque. I only need a little bit of torque, but the main thing is low speeds. And just having something laying around. It's loud, but it works. Earplugs certainly help, that's for sure. And I'm at the end of the coil, and it's kind of feeding back again. So I want this to be nice and smooth like it is down here. I'll figure something out. But anyways, considering this only costs a couple fidget spinners, I think it's pretty good.